So make sure that you have a pen and paper to take notes because as we go through this, you're going to come away with some actionable items to immediately make you a stronger board candidate. And we are recording this so that after the session, I'll send it out to all of you so that if you have more work, because some of this is going to take longer than we have today, maybe to flesh out for some of you. And so we want you to have the opportunity to go back, rewatch, and flesh some of this out together, on your own time. So quick introductions. I am Deborah Boggs. I am a fellow chief member, and I am CEO of DNS Executive Career Management. We are not a search firm. We don't do placements, but we're like the home stagers to make a luxury property look expensive before it goes on the market. We work with VP, C-level, and board level leaders to prepare for, navigate, and land their next big thing. So, for board candidates like you, we do one on one work to help navigate through that whole process, do done for you board resumes, board bios, LinkedIn profiles, search strategy, things like that. And then we also do virtual master classes as well. The next one is coming up in January. So, we'll talk more about that later. And then with me is our Chief Strategy Officer, Michelle Merritt. I'll let her introduce herself and talk a little bit about her board experience as well. She is a sitting paid board member, so she's our expert in this space as well.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Michelle Merritt, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer here at DNS. And my background includes many years of corporate culture, community engagement, and executive career management. I've served on over 30 boards or committees in the lifetime of my career, both in the nonprofit and for-profit space. Currently serve as Vice President of the Merit Commission for the Westfield, Indiana Police Department, where I do serve in a paid board capacity and have the great honor of monitoring things like hiring, discipline, terminations, all of those things for this great, ever expanding city that I get to live in outside of Indy.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michelle. And so we're going to be talking about a couple of things today. So as we go through this, Michelle, I'm not going to be able to monitor the chat
I
because
got it.
someone has my other monitor, Carmen Poff. Oh, I didn't mention Carmen. And Carmen is on our team as well. She is our director of client success and the first person that most people talk to when they learn about our services. So she'll be popping things in the chat, resources for you all, things like that as we go through the process too.
Yeah, I'll definitely put my links in and anything else that you need, Deborah, let me know. I'll pop it in
Perfect.
there.
Thank you. So we said in the chat kind of where we're at in this board journey. It looks like everyone's in a different place, which is great. I think, regardless of whether you're a current board candidate and you've already gone through all of this work to really figure out what's next for you and what your value is, I think that this session will still be really helpful. So glad we're going through this. And why are we doing this? Because the board search is really hard. It's really confusing. There's no playbook. And I'm sure many of you have been through board readiness programs, board governance programs. I know a lot of people go through the ones through Harvard or NACD, PDA, all of these options. But very rarely do you actually learn how to land the board seat, right? There's a lot of information on how to be a good board member, but how do you actually go through the process of landing a board seat? And so we're going to be talking about part of that process today to help all of you be stronger board candidates. So we're going to talk about getting clear on your goals, defining your board specific skills, which is going to go into a nerdy rabbit hole, but it'll be incredibly helpful for you all. And then identifying your unique value. And this is the piece you may not be completely done by the time we're done here, but you'll have all the tools you need to finish it up. So this information really comes from us working with our clients and realizing that there was no defined playbook on this. This is several years ago. Michelle and I sat out to interview board chairs, non-gov committees, board level recruiters, and leaders in this space to understand what are the commonalities that we can trust when we're thinking about how a board member should show up. And one of the things that we heard is that the most common mistake is trying to be all things to all people rather than focusing on specific areas of expertise and value adds. And this is so incredibly important because I cannot tell you um, enough that no one is bringing on generalists right now. And in the board space, we hear from candidates all the time saying things like, well, I've got 30 years of experience leading business, so I can help any business grow. I have 25 years of experience as a CMO, so I can really help anybody. It doesn't matter. Well, companies aren't hiring anybody, right? Or companies aren't bringing on board members that can do anything. They're bringing board members on that can really solve specific challenges. So that's what we're going to dig into today. So the most important first step for a candidate to be successful in this market is to hyper focus on your ideal next role. And Michelle is smiling because she hears me say this
Yes.
1,700 times a week. But you have to
It's true.
really hyper focus into the ideal board seat, because then we can build a unique value proposition that speaks directly to those board seats, so that you go from 30-year career as an executive leader driving sustainable growth or something generic to something hyper specific that really matters to your ideal audience, because we have to remember you're competing against the absolute best in your industry. So how do we do this? We're going to take a minute to go through this and really map out, what does your ideal board opportunity look like? So, and what I mean by that is, what industries are you uniquely equipped to serve? What is the company type? Is it a public company, private company, VC backed PE? Now, I will say public company is not going to be your first board seat typically. So, you might want to think about that. But then also company size. Is it a startup? Is it small, medium sized business, mid market, enterprise, maturity stage? If you're working with startups, is it early stage, hyper growth? Is it pre IPO? Is it a legacy company with a brand that needs a refresh? And then geography, global, is it US based? Do they have international operations? Getting as specific as you can about what your ideal seat looks like will help you in the next steps of really building up that value. So
Deborah,
while we take,
can I pop in here and say that we could also add family-owned businesses and ESOPs as
yes,
two
perfect.
different other sort of categories we see, especially for people starting their board journey. Those tend to be different types that are drawn to earlier career board career candidates.
Really great point. Um, Another one that we've seen recently with a candidate is mutual fund boards and
Mm.
things like that. So um, thank you. I'm glad. So as we pause here, anything we're seeing in the chat, any questions? And Michelle, do you have anything else to add to this while people take a minute here?
Right. So most people are either in the startup, hey, I'm just starting to explore this, or I've been, on an advisory board, that sort of thing. And so we'll get to the conversation around sort of bridging the gap from early stage in your board journey um, to the really landing those paid board seats and what that looks like. But I think for the most part, what I'm seeing here is everyone is in that either exploratory or early stage. And we'll even talk here in a few minutes, I'm sure, about whether or not your nonprofit experience counts and things like that, and how to leverage that, if at all.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll give you just another moment on this screen. I know that it may not be enough time to finish this. We did want to get through a ton of content to get you through to the point of having a unique value proposition. So again, I'll be emailing this out if you need to pause and come back to this and flesh it out a little bit more. And sometimes when we give this presentation to executive job seekers, this question causes existential crisis. So the good news is, with a board seat, the stakes are a little lower.
True.
But narrowing your focus will be more impactful and more effective than trying to cast too wide of a net and diluting your value. So really, I encourage you to go through this exercise and ruthlessly edit down to where you're uniquely equipped to serve.
Now, Deborah, Emily is giving us the perfect lead in to, I think, where you're headed next, because she has automatically dropped in what her, at least part of her UVP, which is, I am a technical leader in AI adoption and digital transformation based in Austin, Texas.
Love this. Love
I
this.
love
Yes.
it.
And this is great. Thank you for sharing that. And if anyone wants to share their unique or their company, if you have an idea of what your ideal opportunity looks like, pop that in the chat as well,
Mhm.
because it's also an opportunity for us all to make introductions for each other if possible.
The best networking happens in the chat.
Yes, I love it. And we have some friends in the chat that are not chief members, so make sure to welcome them. I know Lois is here. I just met with her earlier today. Super excited she was able to join us. So if you see anyone in the chat that does not look familiar, make sure to say hello. Okay, so let's dig into the next phase of this is really thinking about what the unique challenges are to your ideal board opportunity. So thinking about just jotting down what those challenges are as they relate to the industry you're looking at, the type of company, public, private, PE companies, they all have different challenges in the market, right? The company size, what companies that size are struggling with right now, the geography, whatever that might be, just think about all facets of the company. Are they challenged with are they challenged by AI competition? Are they challenged by customer retention, growth, whatever it may be? Just think about those things because what we want to really get to at the end here is a sneak peek to the end is really how you're uniquely equipped to solve those challenges, right? Um, and we can't do that without really spending some time thinking about what those challenges are. So while you're all jotting these down, I'll give it a couple minutes. But while you do that, Michelle, did anybody in the chat share their
Yeah.
ideal opportunity?
Absolutely. So Phoenix says, I am a geopolitical consultant looking for boards that need global operations expertise, and always happy to connect. We'll tackle operations at a point two in this conversation. Michaela says, I have an opportunity for a family foundation board seat, nonprofit charity work, but have no idea if that would be a paid board seat and if it would be a good stepping stone to a corporate board seat. So again, we'll touch on that that unique situation as well as we start to talk about nonprofits. And I can give an example to Deborah of what I one of my board experience, some of my board experience in understanding those challenges. I served on the board for a regional financial institution, about $1 billion in fiduciary responsibility. And, because they were a regional company, one of the biggest challenges that they faced that my experience helped them solve was or employee retention, HR, attracting top talent, that talent piece, because obviously that's part of my background. And I was an active member of that regional community. And so understanding the regional market for them made sense and mattered, right? So those were ways that I helped them solve serious challenges as they were looking to expand wallet share and market share throughout the region. So hopefully that helps give you an example of how you would look at or position what an organization's challenges might be that you could solve. Tessie says, I am in the insurance space and serve on a nonprofit board in the Bay Area looking for paid corporate board seats. Michelle, love the Michelles. I'm a human resources executive with significant experience in M&A. My best fit industries would be life sciences, healthcare, targeting early to mid-stage companies moving toward IPO or newly public companies.
Perfect. You all are doing a great job of really narrowing down what that focus is. So incredibly helpful. How are we all feeling? Are we seeing how this would apply to our search?
I see heads nodding.
Great. Uh, this is great, and I appreciate us taking this time because as we think about these challenges, then we can start building um, on again how we're uniquely equipped to solve for those challenges. Before we get there, though, a lot of questions we probably could have touched on at the top is are you board ready? What does board readiness look like? Are you a good board candidate? And we don't have time to really dig into that in this session, but Carmen is going to pop in the chat a link to a guide we have on determining whether you're board ready or whether there's some gaps in your experience. So Carmen will pop that in the chat, and it's just a one-page guide to 3 questions to ask to think about how ready you are for your board search. So that is a question we get a lot, and so we can talk about that offline.
And Deborah, one thing that is not in here, and I think it's worth pointing out that you did not include these things, is that you have not talked about years of experience.
Yeah, so true. And I'm glad you brought that up. We don't talk about years of experience in the board realm. They're going to expect a certain number of years of experience, and so it's not a differentiator. Everyone has 20 plus years, 25 plus, even 30 years. And so it's not differentiating you at all as a candidate. So when you start with, seasoned executive with 30 years of experience, that's table stakes, and it's setting you up to start like every other candidate out there. And it's not a differentiator at all. It's minimum barrier to entry. So what we want to do instead is start with our unique value, kind of a hook, a pattern disruptor. If they read that, they think, wow, that's different, rather than something that everyone just glazes over because it's the same. And your years of experience will become apparent in your board bio, because especially in board work, you can add dates that date you in ways that we don't in executive resumes for career seats, right? Because they're expecting a certain number of years of experience behind you, for the most part, you are adding dates which will show that you have 20, 25, 30 plus years of experience. So we're going to take a moment here and jot down at least your first thoughts on how you're uniquely equipped to solve for those challenges. I know I'm going really fast. Michelle and I are actually leading a virtual masterclass that launches in January that will go through this content, but slower and have room for more personal feedback. But we did want to give you at least this content, and you can go back and pause. So again, I'll just go give this a moment. And any thoughts you have on this, Michelle?
So, I think this is one of the things that we want to think about here is the word uniquely equipped, right? We can so often say, well, everybody does this, right? We tend to shortchange our own skills so often. I think especially as women, we tend to say, oh, that's just something everyone does. No, it's not. If you've gotten to this point in your career, it is because you are doing something different than everyone else. And don't be afraid to talk about it. And remember that those things that make you uniquely equipped are big picture things in this case, right? We want to make sure that we're really highlighting leadership, governance, those things. You may be the person who can see around the corner, right? You're the person who understands how to mitigate risk and identify, positive risk versus negative risk in your organization, things like that, in a way that other people don't. Think about what that superpower is. What is that thing that people come to you for that they're not asking everyone else? And it seems natural to you, but yet they're not asking everyone else for their input or that superpower. They're only asking you.
Such a good point. This is so important. And as we take a couple more seconds on this, does anyone want to pop in the chat either some of the challenges for your ideal board opportunity, or how you're uniquely equipped to solve them? I know that's a bigger question to add to the chat right this second.
Right. So we've got two more. We've got two that are popping up here, Deborah. Eden says, great. I am recognized for reframing compliance, privacy, and cyber risk as strategic assets that strengthen trust, protect enterprise value, and enable patient-centered outcomes. What a fantastic UVP.
Love that, Eden. Thanks so much for sharing.
Had a little help with it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We're big fans of the people who helped you. Amy says, I am a dynamic marketing leader with deep expertise building high impact digital programs for major national and international nonprofits. Love that.
Love those two. All right. Okay, so we're going to move on. Again, I know it's super fast. Pause if you need to, come back later. But we're going to dig into keyboard skills because this is a really big topic. And don't panic if you see this whole list and think, oh my goodness, I'm missing some things. Where this list comes from is, we want to think about our board specific skills, and they're going to be different than our executive leadership skills. We're being brought on to be strategic advisors. We're not being brought on to be operators or executive leaders, right? And it's different. And so it's really different to think about your skills in a different lens. So when we did our initial research, and then since then we've revised this 425 times in the last couple of years as the world keeps changing. But here are the most sought after general skills as they relate to board candidates. So when we talk to board, board chairs, non-gov committee chairs, board level recruiters, here's the things that we heard most often that they were looking for in a board candidate. Now, this is across all industries. We're going to dig in a little deeper and talk industry specific in a minute. This is where we'll go down our nerdy little rabbit hole. But for right now, this is general. And what I want you to think about is the 3 to 5 skills that you are most equipped to advise a C-level team on. What I don't want you to think about is I'm not a cybersecurity expert, so I'm not going to list it. But I also don't want you to think I have to have all of these things and I'm going to list everything because that's diluting our value. But don't underestimate your experience in, um, you know, corporate strategy, or, maybe you're saying, well, I didn't lead I wasn't the chief strategy officer, so I can't count corporate strategy, right? Don't discount your experience. But I want to talk about a couple of these things. These skills change all the time as the world changes. These are what we're seeing right now. And I want you to think about, P&L ownership is going to be table stakes for anyone who should own P&L. There's a couple of things, CHROs, CMOs, and general counsel probably won't have P&L, but everyone else should. If you have M&A, IPO, divestitures, joint ventures, other exits, things like that, that's a differentiator, right? Any international global experience, differentiator. Cybersecurity and artificial intelligence are really popular right now as far as needing to understand how cybersecurity impacts the risk profile and opportunities for a business. And same thing with artificial intelligence. And so these are things that, you may not be an expert in, but get some vocabulary around. So I'm going to pause there and see. I'm sure Michelle has some thoughts on this as well.
I do. I think the public-private corporate experience is one to highlight as well. Transformation. It not just digital transformation, but transformation as an organization, highlighting those things. Find me an organization that isn't in the middle of transformation anymore, right? It's just a daily occurrence. So
Constant.
being able to speak to that very clearly. I think it's also notable what is not in here, right? We've made some changes to this list, as Deborah mentioned. A couple things right now. ESG, we've removed from the list. It is not something that boards are looking for right now. That does not mean it's not important. Same with DEI. It is not that we are questioning the importance of those two things. We know how important they are. What we also know is that non-gov committees, board recruiters, et cetera, are not looking for those skills in your unique value proposition statements in your resumes at the moment. That does not, again, mean that it's not important. It does not mean that if that is how you've built your career, there's no opportunity for you. There certainly is, but we work on the framing to meet the opportunities available and then help you get in and make a difference in the organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Such an important point.
So, Deborah, we also have Anne has popped her statement in the chat too, if you don't mind me sharing it.
Oh, great, please.
I'm a product leader who oversees new product launches and re-platforming projects with the ability to read the room and remove psychological roadblocks, to get the roadmap moving. I love that last line.
Interesting. Yeah, I do too. Because you can have a roadmap all day long, but if you're not going anywhere, what's the point?
Right.
I love that. So, okay. So as we mentioned, these are general skills. And so if anyone wants to pop in the chat there, 3 to 5 from this list, I'd love to see them. And then now we're going to dig a little deeper into the industry specific skills as you think about your ideal board seat. And so we're going to talk about, like my nerdy little slide here, your secret advantage to highlighting the perfect skills for your ideal seat. And what this is really leaning on board skills matrices. And what this is something that all public companies and I shouldn't say most, some private companies use to determine what they need on their board from a skills profile, who they have on their board now, what skills they bring, and that allows them to see where their gaps are when they're recruiting new board members. Now, because most of you are not looking for a public seat first, that's fine, but you can still use public company board matrices to determine what skills are most important for your kind of industry or the kind of company or the go-to-market strategy or customer profile or product or service, whatever it may be. And so thinking about what some of those public companies may be that align with your ideal private company. And then, the easiest way to find them now is asking ChatGPT to send you the proxy statement, most recent proxy statement for that company, and it'll be listed in there somewhere, typically. I'm going to show you a couple of examples so that you understand what this looks like and how they're different for different industries. But again, this just gives you an idea. Don't get too hung up on whether most people have one or the other or where they have gaps, because again, it's going to be different for your company, but it gives you an idea of how the board specific skills change across industries.
Deborah, while you're pulling that up, I'll share some of the skills that people are popping into the chat. Liz says international global experience, M&A, digital transformation, go-to-market strategy, AI, cybersecurity. Lois, marketing strategy, technology expertise, M&A. Michelle, P&L ownership, strategic exits, IPO enterprise, organizational transformation, corporate governance, global experience. Neetha, I hope I said that right. P&L operation, P&L ownership, turnaround experience, corporate strategy. Karen, financial acumen, audit experience, corporate strategy, go-to-market strategy. Michelle, global experience, M&A, IPO, AI, corporate strategy. Michaela, digital transformation, marketing strategy, corporate strategy. So lots of strategy, lots of P&L ownership, lots of AI, M&A experience here.
Perfect. Thank you. And thanks for popping those in the chat. It's so helpful to see where everyone's at. And so let's look at this one. This is the first one. This is Wells Fargo. Now, this is their 2024 skills matrix. I know that they made a new one very recently for 2025 that pulled out a couple of things like ESG. I don't believe is listed anymore. And Michelle, correct me if you remember that wrong. I know we looked it up in a
We looked it up, and I
virtual
do
or a
think it
live-
was removed.
Yeah. So, but for Wells Fargo, these are the qualifications and experience they're looking for in their board members. So financial services experience, including consumer banking, insurance, retirement services, things like that. Prior large public company CFO experience, risk management, human capital management. That's something that used to be on our general list and has come off since then. But it is certainly, so for CHROs in the audience, this is something that, it's certainly still possible to get board seats. This is CHRO, but you can't lead with human capital management. You have to lead with business impact and also have human capital management experience. A lot of times we see CHROs try to lead on people leadership, and it's just not going to land a board seat right now. Corporate governance, consumer marketing and digital, community affairs, government, public policy. That's a big one. I know there was someone in the chat. I think it was Phoenix that is in public policy, global perspective, international experience, things like that. Additional qualifications, financial services, risk expertise, other risk and audit committee. So this is different, right? Gives you an idea if you're going to look for something in banking, like I know Michelle has had in the past in the private space. These are some of the areas that you could lean in on. Again, I know it's not going to be public, but at least it gives you a roadmap on some of the additional skills that you could weave into your unique value proposition that maybe other people wouldn't have.
So Deborah,
Yes.
Can I draw attention to one thing here real quick, which is that we're talking about Wells Fargo, one of the biggest banks in the world, and yet there are so many people who would say to us, I have no financial services experience, so therefore I can't be considered for the Wells Fargo board. If we look here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 board members listed here who have no boxes checked in the financial services and accounting sectors here. So just because you don't have experience in financial services and doesn't mean you can't go apply to Wells Fargo, right? Because you may bring other things that matter to this board.
Such a great point. And I think that, when we think about narrowing our focus, that's narrowing our focus so we can narrow our search and our messaging. It doesn't mean that we can't entertain opportunities that come across our desk. And once we're a compelling candidate for one thing, things will come to us, right? And that's where some of these opportunities may come from.
Yeah, if I may, I just want to underscore that point, Michelle, that you made really eloquently. So my name's Michelle Bonfilio. I'm in CHRO in transition. I was most recently with a consumer healthcare company. We were building out our board. We were out to market for 2 independent directors. In both instances, we were not looking for healthcare experience. In one instance, we were looking for large-scale technology transformation experience. And then, interestingly enough, we were also looking for human capital management experience because we were a 60,000 employee company looking to scale to over 100,000. So we were looking for someone who really understood kind of that dynamic of operating with such a large workforce. So just to share that as anecdotal, that you don't have to always think about the specific industry and having that knowledge, because boards, the best boards are diversely represented with experience.
That's
Sorry,
awesome.
that was a little
Certainly. Thank you
mouthful.
so much for that. So let's look at another one, because there's really no standard for what these board skills matrices look like. So this is HubSpot. This is their, I think this was from early 2025. And as you can see, it's a lot, they lay it out a little bit differently. The skills are different, right? So you're gonna have sales and marketing, experience in sales, digital marketing, freemium sales, partnerships, distribution, brand management. It goes a little bit, so they pull their skills out a little bit differently, but it gives you an idea of every company and every industry is going to look at this a little differently. And so this is where you can pull some other things. So, experience serving small and medium-sized businesses. Sometimes your experience may not be in the business, it may be serving those markets. Product management, product strategy and design, multi-product services, technology infrastructure. This is where it's, it could be R&D, enterprise IT, cloud computing, AI, cybersecurity, certainly something that's, as we talked about, really growing in importance. Global expansion, strong understanding of global expansion, operations, sales, or markets. So, and then I'll pull this down a little bit here. In finance, experience, financial management, accounting, investment management, corporate finance, mergers and acquisitions, capital structure, audit committee, P&L management. So these are the 2 we wanted to show you. I want you to take just a moment and jot down a couple of company names that you're going to want to pull your own matrices from. That way, after the webinar, we don't have time to do this now, but that way afterwards, you have kind of a to-do list of exactly who to pull, and you can look at these for yourself. Some of you may have pulled it since we've been chatting about it too. And if you have, I'd love to see in the chat what the differences were in your industry that you saw. But I also realize you may have not have had time for that yet.
Might have stepped away.